My name is Ulrike Feld. I'm a professor in the Social Science faculty of the University of Vienna, concretely in the Department of Science and Technology Studies. My research focuses on the complex relations between scientific knowledge, technological developments, and related transformations of our societies. So, in short, on how we live in innovation societies. After watching this video, you will know about various forms of evidence and evidence-based policymaking in environmental action. You will also learn about the importance of societal participation and what role this kind of evidence has or should have in environmental policymaking. I will discuss the evidence needed to inform policy, justify interventions, and evaluate outcomes and reflect on who should have a voice in identifying problems, developing future scenarios, and participating in collective decision-making. In this context, a perspective from the social sciences can offer invaluable insights and significantly enhance solutions. A short exercise in reflection. Imagine for a moment you have to make a decision about the energy provision for your apartment or house. If you believe that choices should be based on some kind of evidence and not just on ad hoc gut feelings, then what sorts of evidence would you use to make your choice? Read some reports on different modes of energy solutions available? Okay. But more importantly, those produced by researchers in university or those who conduct and produce the technologies? Or would you ask your neighbor who has already maybe made their choice? Or go to a web forum that discusses these issues and see how the majority of users make their decisions? Okay. I encourage you to seek your own answers to these questions. This raises a crucial question. How diverse should the evidence types be for major decisions? Let's move from the individual decision-making to environmental policy. I ask, what evidence-based decision-making or evidence-based policy means in practice? Indeed, in recent years, we have frequently encountered the term evidence-based, as seen in evidence-based medicine and evidence-based policymaking, among other examples. Often during crisis, it might initially appear sufficient to rely solely on the natural sciences to generate the necessary insights and share them. However, as the COVID crisis has demonstrated, the concept of evidence is more complicated than it seems. Incorporating a social science perspective highlights the intricate interplay among scientific facts, societal issues, and political responses. The same applies to public participation. One might naively think that if we simply inform people about the facts, they will readily grasp the issue and follow the recommended actions. Yet decades of social science research reveal that individuals view problems in a more nuanced way and make their decisions accordingly. This underscores the statement's relevance. Society has problems. Science has disciplines. Let's start with a basic question. What is evidence? Evidence, according to the Oxford Dictionary, is, I quote, the facts, signs, or objects that make you believe that something is true. Others define this a bit more broadly as information or data that supports or does not support, claim, a hypothesis, or decisions. Three dimensions are frequently used to characterize evidence. It should be reliable, so the information should be consistent and trustworthy. It should be valid, so the evidence should accurately represent what it claims to measure. And it should be relevant, so the evidence should fit with the problem to be addressed. That sounds good so far. It follows the ideals of science. But would we also need to consider other forms of evidence as they are relevant when people make decisions or when they assess a policy decision as reasonable and worth supporting? One such evidence is called anecdotal evidence. This is evidence built on personal observations or experiences framed in stories individuals tell. From a scientific point of view, we would classify them as subjective, but they are omnipresent in media or in formal discussions. Sometimes they formally come together, such as in ratings of restaurants, hotels, and transport companies. Just take TripAdvisor as an example. where a collection of anecdotal evidence suddenly becomes much more. Such ratings become evidence for an increasing number of people, and such sites that allow this evidence to emerge play the role of trusted intermediary for the independent traveler. I will speak to participatory knowledge generation in a minute. This shows that trust is an essential element in our relationship to evidence. It also shows that citizens use other forms of evidence when assessing a policy decision. When did we start to use the notion of evidence-based policymaking? The concept gained traction in the 1990s. However, interpretations of the term differ widely. Policymaking is inherently complex and often chaotic, with scientific evidence being just one of several influencing elements. Instead of a neatly organized process, some analysts have aptly characterized it as muddling through. The challenges where policymakers most require scientific guidance are typically the moments where science itself is most intricate, multidisciplinary, and incomplete. And the triple crisis is a perfect example for that. Science and policymaking operate in separate spheres, each shaped by distinct cultures, reasoning styles, methods, and epistemological views, so the way how they see knowledge. We need to abandon easy linear thinking. Scientific evidence does not straightforwardly lead to policy agreement and does not dictate decisions. As demonstrated during the COVID crisis, such simplistic assumptions can lead us astray. The best scientific evidence is always context-dependent, partial, framed by specific disciplinary methods of problem definition and solution finding, and is characterized by uncertainties, among other factors. What are the sources of evidence in the context of policymaking? It comes from scientific research published in peer-reviewed journals and from standardized, controlled experiments that provide rigorous data on specific topics, from health to environmental issues. We also have to consider data collections over time that potentially illustrate trends and patterns. We need to think of scientific modeling, which is essential in the case of the triple crisis. These are complex yet also simplified representations used to explain, predict, or understand real-world phenomena. They can be physical, mathematical, or conceptual, helping scientists explore complex systems in a more manageable way. We could then look at case studies examining the potential impact of specific interventions and policies. Specific instances can provide practical insights into the effectiveness of certain policy or intervention. Expert opinions are also an important form of evidence, as they provide insights from professionals or academics in specific fields that connect various insights from their experiential backgrounds. And finally, I should mention public consultations. Feedback from community members and stakeholders can reflect the values and needs of the population, ensuring that evidence is relevant and applicable. I want to focus specifically on the last element essential to evidence making, public consultation, or more generally, public participation. In which ways does participation contribute to evidence and thus also change the process of evidence-based policymaking? Several dimensions should be mentioned here. Engaging with diverse community members introduces a wide range of perspectives and local knowledge, which may not appear relevant in traditional research. This engagement can also yield various types of data collected through different methods, crucial for navigating complex environmental decisions. Moreover, allowing people a voice in decision-making fosters increased transparency and encourages ethical behavior on the side of policymaking, enhancing accountability. It also legitimizes policy choices, making them more trustworthy. Additionally, it provides individuals with a stake in policy outcomes, potentially spurring proactive attitudes towards environmental changes. In summary, public involvement enriches the evidence foundation for environmental policies while promoting collaboration, accountability, and trust, ultimately resulting in more effective and sustainable outcomes. How to make evidence-based policy making in practice. Peter Gluckman, who chairs the International Network for Government Science Advice, INGSA, emphasizes the crucial role of so-called knowledge brokering in evidence-based policymaking. What exactly does brokering entail, and who and what is a knowledge broker or evidence broker? This intermediary, whether it's a person or an organization, works to forge connections between knowledge producers and users by providing link sources and sometimes supplementary information to enhance the decision-making process. Essentially, this approach broadens and refines the policy options available to decision makers. To be effective, knowledge from diverse sources and cultures must be compiled into an easily digestible format that clearly outlines known and unknown factors while accurately reflecting levels of uncertainty and related caveats. When research remains confined within specific scientific disciplines, its ability to guide policymakers and politicians diminishes significantly. What can we take away? As much as classical disciplinary knowledge is essential for policymaking, it is only one aspect. Policy will need to incorporate knowledges from diverse disciplines and actors outside the scientific system. It is essential to consider the limits of what we know and to take the uncertainties of our knowledge seriously. Scientific evidence needs to be incorporated into policymaking and political choices, but other inputs coming through participatory forms of engagement also deserve consideration. Furthermore, it is essential not to conflate science with policy or politics, but to keep a clear boundary. Science needs space, freed from direct politics, and politicians need to develop societal solutions, including scientific and other forms of evidence, while taking responsibility for these decisions. This means that spaces are needed where science and policymaking can actually meet around many questions surrounding the triple crisis.